How women gained power in a man's world. The Ottoman Empire was built on war, conquest, and the strength of its sultans. From the moment a boy was born into the royal family, he was groomed to rule. He would be sent to govern distant provinces, trained in politics, and tested in battle. It was a world where power belonged to men. Or so it seemed. Behind the towering walls of Topkapi Palace, another kind of power was at play, one that did not rely on swords or armies. It was the power of influence, intelligence, and carefully crafted strategy. And for centuries, it belonged to the women of the imperial harem. In the early days of the empire, Ottoman queens and concubines had little say in political matters. Their roles were confined to the palace, where they were expected to bear heirs and live in quiet luxury. But as the empire expanded, so did the ambitions of these women. They were no longer content to remain in the shadows. Slowly, they began to shape history, not through force, but through persuasion, loyalty, and at times, ruthless cunning. One of the earliest signs of change came when women began securing positions as Valide Sultan, the mother of the reigning sultan. Unlike wives and concubines, the mother of the ruler could not be cast aside. She held an unshakable position in the court, and many used it to their advantage. Some acted as advisors to their sons, guiding them through the complexities of ruling an empire. Others took an even bolder step, directly influencing political decisions and shaping alliances. But the most dramatic shift came in the 16th century with the arrival of one woman, Hurrem Sultan. She was not born into royalty. She was not raised to rule. Yet, through intelligence, charm, and an unbreakable will, she rose from a captured slave to become the most powerful woman in the empire. Her marriage to Suleiman the Magnificent shattered centuries of tradition, making her the first legal wife of a reigning Ottoman sultan. More importantly, she did not stop at being a queen, she became a ruler in her own right. Hurrem's rise set a precedent. After her, women would no longer be passive figures in the Ottoman court. They would command wealth, form political alliances, and, at times, determine the fate of the empire itself. Following in her footsteps was her daughter, Mihrimah Sultan, a woman whose influence stretched beyond the palace into the very heart of Ottoman politics. Their legacy sparked an era known as the Sultanate of Women, a time when queens and mothers wielded power like never before. It was a time when a whisper in the palace halls could be more dangerous than an army on the battlefield. This was how women gained power in a world ruled by men, not through brute strength, but through strategy, patience, and the ability to turn even the smallest opportunity into a kingdom of their own. Hurrem Sultan, the first empress of the Ottoman Empire. In the vast history of the Ottoman Empire, no woman left a mark quite like Hurrem Sultan. She was not born into royalty, nor was she meant to rule. And yet, through sheer intelligence, charm, and an unrelenting will, she shattered centuries of tradition and changed the very structure of the empire. Hurrem's story began far from the palaces of Istanbul. She was born in the early 1500s in what is now Ukraine, likely in the town of Rohatyn. Her birth name was Alexandra or Anastasia Lizowska, and she belonged to a Christian family. But her life took a brutal turn when she was captured by Crimean Tatar raiders and sold into slavery. She was eventually taken to the Ottoman court, where she became a concubine in the harem of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. The imperial harem was a world of its own, filled with ambition, beauty, and silent battles for influence. Most concubines spent their lives in quiet anonymity, their fates determined by whether they bore the sultan a son. But Hurrem was different. She did not merely accept her fate, she rewrote it. Her striking red hair and lively personality caught Suleiman's attention almost immediately. He gave her the name, Hurrem, meaning, the cheerful one, a sign of the deep affection he had for her. But it was not beauty alone that secured her place in history, it was her mind. She quickly became the sultan's favorite, not just as a lover, but as a trusted advisor. Hurrem was skilled in the art of diplomacy and politics. Unlike most concubines, who remained confined within the palace, she engaged in correspondence with foreign rulers, including the Polish king and the Shah of Persia. She advised Suleiman on matters of state and, through her influence, helped shape Ottoman policies. Her rise to power sparked jealousy and outrage among the palace elite. The greatest opposition came from Mahidevran Sultan, Suleiman's first concubine and the mother of his eldest son, Mustafa. Mahidevran had once been the most powerful woman in the harem, but Hurrem's presence changed everything. The rivalry between the two women grew so intense that it led to violent clashes. According to some accounts, Mahidevran once attacked Hurrem, leaving her with visible scars. But Hurrem's true victory came when she did something no concubine had ever done before: she became the legal wife of the Sultan. For centuries, Ottoman rulers had taken concubines but had never married them. Marriage was reserved for forming political alliances with noble families. Yet Suleiman broke this tradition, elevating Hurrem to the status of his queen. With her new position as Haysaki Sultan, Hurrem's influence only grew. She played a critical role in court politics, particularly in securing the future of her own children. She knew that as long as Mustafa, Mahidevran's son, was the heir, her own sons would never sit on the throne. This led to one of the most controversial events in Ottoman history: the downfall of Prince Mustafa. Mustafa was a beloved prince, respected by both the people and the military. Many saw him as the rightful successor to the throne. But Hurrem and her ally, Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha, convinced Suleiman that Mustafa was plotting against him. The Sultan, swayed by their warnings, ordered his own son's execution. The decision shocked the empire and solidified Hurrem's power. With Mustafa gone, her own son, Selim, was now the most likely heir. But Hurrem was not just a political strategist, she was also a great patron of the arts and architecture. She commissioned numerous mosques, schools, and charitable foundations across the empire. The Haysaki Hurrem Sultan Mosque, built by the famous architect Mimar Sinan, still stands in Istanbul today as a testament to her legacy. Unlike most women of the harem, who lived in isolation, Hurrem corresponded with foreign leaders, shaped diplomatic policies, and helped define the empire's direction. She remained Suleiman's closest confidant until her death in 1558. Even in her final years, she continued to wield power, ensuring that her children would inherit the throne. Hurrem Sultan was more than just a concubine, she was a queen in every sense of the word. She broke traditions, reshaped the Ottoman court, and paved the way for a new era in which women played an active role in ruling the empire. She was the first, but she would not be the last. Her daughter, Mihrimah Sultan, would follow in her footsteps, continuing the legacy of female power in the Ottoman world. Mihrimah Sultan, the secret ruler of an empire. Mihrimah Sultan was not just the daughter of a sultan, she was a woman who mastered the game of power in an empire dominated by men. Born in 1522 to Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent and his powerful wife, Hurrem Sultan, Mihrimah was raised in a world of intrigue, diplomacy, and ambition. Unlike most Ottoman princesses, whose influence remained confined within the palace, Mihrimah played a direct role in shaping the empire's policies. Some even argue that, for a time, she was the true ruler behind the throne. From an early age, it was clear that Mihrimah was no ordinary princess. She was highly intelligent, well-educated, and deeply involved in court politics. Her father, Suleiman, adored her, and her mother, Hurrem, trained her in the art of power. Unlike the concubines of the harem, Mihrimah had a unique advantage: she was born into power, and no one could take that away from her. Her rise to influence truly began after she married Rustam Pasha, one of the most powerful men in the empire. Rustam was not of noble birth, but he was an ambitious and ruthless statesman. With Mihrimah by his side, he rose to the position of Grand Vizier, effectively making him the second most powerful man in the empire. But many believed that it was Mihrimah who truly pulled the strings behind his rule. Mihrimah played a key role in one of the most controversial moments in Ottoman history: the execution of her half-brother, Prince Mustafa. Mustafa was the empire's most beloved prince, seen by many as the rightful heir to the throne. However, he was also the greatest threat to Hurrem and Mihrimah's own family. Along with her mother and husband, Mihrimah allegedly convinced Suleiman that Mustafa was plotting a rebellion. The result was one of the most tragic events in the empire's history: Suleiman ordered the execution of his own son. After Hurrem Sultan's death in 1558, Mihrimah inherited her mother's role as the most powerful woman in the empire. She became her father's closest confidant, advising him on matters of state. Some records suggest that she even acted as Suleiman's political envoy, exchanging letters with foreign rulers, including the King of Poland. Mihrimah was also a brilliant strategist when it came to securing power for her own family. She played a crucial role in ensuring that her brother, Selim II, inherited the throne after their father's death. Selim, unlike their father, was known for his indulgent lifestyle and lack of strong leadership. But Mihrimah stepped in, becoming one of the key figures behind his rule. Many believe that while Selim sat on the throne, it was Mihrimah who truly ran the empire. Beyond politics, Mihrimah left a lasting mark on the empire through her patronage of architecture and charity. She commissioned grand mosques, hospitals, and schools, including the famous Mihrimah Sultan mosques in Istanbul, designed by the legendary architect Mimar Sinan. According to legend, Sinan was deeply in love with Mihrimah and built these mosques as symbols of his devotion. Mihrimah Sultan remained a powerful force in the Ottoman court until her death in 1578. Even as other women rose to prominence during the Sultanate of Women, few wielded the same level of direct influence as she did. She was not just a princess, she was a ruler in her own right, shaping the empire from behind the scenes. Her story is one of intelligence, ambition, and mastery of the political game. While history often remembers the sultans, Mihrimah's legacy proves that, sometimes, the most powerful ruler is the one who never officially wears the crown. The Sultanate of Women. A new era begins. By the time Mihrimah Sultan had secured her family's rule, the Ottoman Empire had entered a period unlike any before, a time when women were no longer confined to the harem but actively shaped the empire's politics. This era, now known as the Sultanate of Women, spanned nearly a century, during which powerful women ruled from behind the throne, shaping policies, influencing diplomacy, and determining the fate of sultans. This shift did not happen overnight. It was the result of decades of strategic maneuvering by women like Hurrem Sultan and Mihrimah Sultan, who had broken the traditional barriers of the Ottoman court. But after their time, other women stepped in to continue their legacy, most notably Nurbanu Sultan and Kösem Sultan. Nurbanu, the Venetian-born wife of Selim II and the mother of Murad III, followed in Hurrem's footsteps by becoming a central figure in the empire's politics. When her husband, Selim II, died in 1574, she ensured that her son ascended the throne without opposition. From that moment on, she ruled as Valide Sultan, the title given to the mother of the reigning sultan, which came with immense power and influence. She controlled access to the sultan, dictated court decisions, and even played a role in shaping foreign relations. Her successor, Kösem Sultan, took the power of the Valide Sultan to another level. Unlike her predecessors, who mainly influenced their husbands or sons, Kösem directly ruled the empire during the reigns of multiple sultans. When her son, Murad IV, was too young to rule, Kösem acted as regent, making her one of the most powerful figures in Ottoman history. Even after Murad came of age, she continued to wield power, later becoming regent again for her grandson, Mehmed IV. The Sultanate of Women was not just about palace intrigue, it had real consequences for the empire. These women were responsible for shaping military campaigns, negotiating treaties, and maintaining the stability of the state. Their leadership ensured that the Ottoman Empire remained a dominant global power, even as internal challenges arose. However, not everyone approved of their influence. Many Ottoman statesmen saw the growing power of women as a dangerous departure from tradition. Some even blamed the decline of the empire on their interference. But in reality, the Sultanate of Women was not a sign of weakness, it was a sign of adaptation. These women stepped in to fill the power vacuum when weak or inexperienced sultans sat on the throne, ensuring that the empire did not collapse under internal strife. This period marked a turning point in Ottoman history. Women were no longer passive figures hidden behind palace walls. They were rulers, diplomats, and strategists. They built mosques, commissioned charitable institutions, and controlled the vast wealth of the empire. The Sultanate of Women was a testament to their ability to navigate the treacherous world of Ottoman politics, proving that power did not belong to men alone. Were they just manipulators or true leaders? For centuries, historians and storytellers have debated the role of the powerful women of the Ottoman Empire. Were they mere manipulators, using deception and palace intrigue to control the throne? Or were they true leaders, stepping in when weak or reckless sultans threatened the stability of the empire? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. The women of the Sultanate of Women operated in a world where power was never openly handed to them. Unlike European queens, they did not inherit official titles or hold direct rule. Their power was earned, fought for, and often taken in secrecy. They influenced the empire not through royal decrees but through whispers in the halls of Topkapi Palace, through letters sent in secret, and through carefully crafted alliances. Hurrem Sultan was one of the first to master this art. She was accused of manipulating Suleiman the Magnificent, using charm and ambition to rise from a concubine to his legal wife, a shocking break from tradition. Her enemies claimed she orchestrated the downfall of her rivals, including the execution of Grand Vizier Ibrahim Pasha and the tragic death of Prince Mustafa. But was she simply eliminating threats to secure her own family's future, or was she making necessary political moves to ensure stability in the empire? Mihrimah Sultan, her daughter, was another example of how Ottoman women navigated power. Unlike Hurrem, Mihrimah did not rise through marriage or motherhood. Her influence came from intelligence and strategic thinking. She advised her father, Suleiman, and later supported her brother Selim II, a weak ruler who relied on her guidance. Historians question whether she was protecting the empire from her brother's reckless rule or if she was simply ensuring her own dominance. Nurbanu Sultan and Kösem Sultan took this power to new heights. Nurbanu was known for her role in foreign diplomacy, particularly in the Ottoman-Venetian conflict, while Kösem Sultan ruled as regent for two sultans. Both women faced accusations of controlling the empire through deception and betrayal. Kösem, in particular, made countless enemies by removing or replacing officials who stood in her way. Some saw her as a ruthless power player, while others saw her as a stabilizing force in a chaotic period. The question remains, if these women were truly manipulative, why did the empire not collapse under their influence? In fact, some of the greatest territorial expansions and political successes of the Ottoman Empire happened during their time. Their leadership kept the empire from internal chaos when weak sultans took the throne. While men ruled in name, it was often the women who made the real decisions. This period challenges the traditional view that political leadership belongs only to men. The women of the Ottoman court proved that leadership does not always require a throne or an army. It can come from intelligence, diplomacy, and resilience. Whether they were seen as manipulators or leaders depends on perspective, but one thing is undeniable: they shaped history. The Sultanate of Women was not just a phase in Ottoman history, it was a defining era that reshaped the power dynamics of the empire. From the ambitious Hurrem Sultan to the politically astute Mihrimah, from the diplomatic Nurbanu to the formidable Kösem, these women proved that leadership was not limited to the sultans who sat on the throne. They maneuvered through a rigid system designed to keep them in the shadows and emerged as rulers in their own right, shaping the empire's fate for nearly a century. What made these women extraordinary was not just their rise to power but how they wielded it. They controlled vast wealth, commissioned grand architectural projects, engaged in international diplomacy, and influenced military decisions, all while navigating the treacherous politics of the Ottoman court. They ensured the continuity of dynasties, eliminated threats to their families, and, in many cases, made decisions that directly impacted the empire's survival. Despite their contributions, history has often been unkind to them. Many were painted as scheming manipulators who used deceit and ambition to maintain their influence. Their involvement in political intrigue, assassinations, and strategic marriages has made them controversial figures. But when compared to the actions of male rulers, their strategies were no different from the political maneuvers of sultans and viziers. The only difference was that they had to fight twice as hard to claim their place in history. Their impact extended beyond politics. Their patronage of architecture and charity left a lasting mark on the empire. Mihrimah Sultan's mosques, Nurbanu Sultan's hospitals, and Kösem Sultan's public works transformed the cities of the Ottoman world, ensuring their legacy lived on long after their time in power had ended. The Sultanate of Women eventually came to an end as the Ottoman system shifted, reducing the influence of the Valide Sultan and the royal harem. However, the precedent had been set. Women were no longer just passive figures in the empire. They had proven that power was not bound by gender, it was a game of strategy, intelligence, and resilience. In the end, whether they are remembered as ruthless manipulators or visionary leaders, their impact on history is undeniable. They ruled an empire from behind closed doors, shaped the course of one of the world's most powerful civilizations, and left behind a legacy that defied the norms of their time. The women of the Ottoman Empire may not have worn the Sultan's crown, but they were queens in their own right, rulers of an empire that never officially acknowledged them, yet could not have survived without them.